Yes, guys, how you doing? Hello, welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Well, there's Bugsy Malone, hat thief, but the hat returns. For those of you who don't know, Bugsy took my home kit. I've got 3 of these hats: the home, the away kit, and the third kit. They're all the same, but they're all slightly just feel different to me. And Bugsy took this one, or at least I thought she did, but she never said anything either way. But I found it. I did find it. It was in the bottom of her toy box. I think she'd taken it and swapped it with a ball, and then another ball, and eventually it found its way to the bottom of the box. She never said a word. She's no grass, but I did eventually get it back, and it's in decent shape. So I'm a happy boy. I hope you are happy and healthy doing whatever you're doing, and that you're in a good mood. Sorry, always do the farm jokes. Please do me a favour, guys. Smash the like button for me on the video. Smash the subscribe on the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. And we've got quite a few things to get through, so I'm gonna try and speak quickly and not be too verbose. Mickey van der Ven, his scan is taking place at 9 o'clock this morning, which is about now in real time as of recording. So sending our best wishes, and hopefully, God willing, it won't be the disaster that we think it might be, or we fear it might be. He was seen. There was a picture going around on Twitter from Shutterstock that was officially dated as yesterday in the training, and he was standing there talking, holding hands with Sonny, but leaning on his bad leg, smiling, no crutches. I'm no doctor, but that's got to be something positive, surely. You wouldn't be able to do that if you'd torn your hamstring anyway, so maybe it's just like a pull or a strain, which hopefully is good news. Anyway, we will wait and see. But on that front, we have some transfer news, views and clues to get through in 2 departments: defenders and midfielders. I'm going to start with the midfielders bit because it's the quickest one to get through. Pierre Højbjerg, according to Romano from late September, a month ago, he said he's desperate to get out and try something new in 2024. And apparently at the Chelsea game, the Juventus director of football and chief scout and assistant scout were in the ground watching both Conor Gallagher and Pierre Højbjerg, hoping to get glimpses and see if they could fit the system that they're looking for. Obviously, Juventus have got issues with one of their players being banned for betting, and then I think Paul Pogba is being obviously a long-term ban as well for doping. So they're looking for someone that can control the midfield, and the 3 names at the top of their list are Gallagher, Højbjerg or Calvin Phillips. And I think they've turned away from Calvin Phillips. Conor Gallagher's probably too important for Chelsea right now, and so Højbjerg has impressed when he's come on, both as a centre-back against Chelsea, but obviously as a midfielder as well this season in the Palace game, for example. And it remains to be seen whether or not he's still happy enough to stay and be a part of something at Tottenham, or whether he does want to go out and be, a leader and an integral part of a cog at Juventus. If that story does materialise in a way where he leaves the club, then Tottenham have been linked with 2 players that are quite interesting. One of them is Matt O'Reilly from Celtic. Some Celtic sports journalists and correspondents on TV were saying, Matt O'Reilly is the best player in Scotland right now. He's 22 years old. He can play in the DM role, in the central midfielder role, in the second 8. Under Postecoglou, he played in the Pape Sarr role. But occasionally you'd even see him playing in that right winger, area, or at least not necessarily playing in that spot officially, but kind of adopting it in the game. A brilliantly exciting young player, really, sky high potential. For me personally, I don't want this to sound cruel to anyone who might be a Celtic fan or something who's watching, but I'll keep the same energy. It's not that I don't believe that he is of the level. I'm just never sure what that level is, and whether or not him coming into a team that's trying to create magic in the Champions League and go into title-winning teams next season or beyond, I'm not really sure. He might very well be. I look, for what it's worth, in 16 games this season, I think he scored 6 goals and 5 assists. I think 2 of those assists have come in the Champions League, for what it's worth. So he's a very exciting player. And again, Ange knows him really well. And this is one of those players and one of those situations where if Ange is okay with it and on board with it, then I 100% am. I'm still trying to understand the intricacies of Ange ball. He knows them, it's his ball. So that's the first link, although he's just signed a long-term contract at Celtic. So I don't think Celtic would let him leave on the cheap, but the correspondence was saying if someone like Tottenham came in, then he'd probably want to go and try his level at a high level. And look, he's got so much time on his side. So again, it's an interesting one. He's a very good passer, a real workhorse, knows how to press. And I've always been impressed whenever I've seen him. So certainly not talking it down in any way, shape or form. The other story is a more distant one that I have very little. Literally, I've only seen the guy play once in the Copa Libertadores, and that is Fluminense's midfielder, very much a defensive midfielder, Andre, 22 years old as well, like Matt O'Reilly. I think Liverpool put in a bid for him for 21 million in the summer and it was turned down. They wanted to keep hold of him for the Copa Libertadores final, which they ended up winning last weekend, I think it was. And consequently, the player now has completed what he wanted to complete and is thinking about moving on, and maybe Europe is his next destination. From what I've seen of him, hi guys. From what I've seen of him, he doesn't create or doesn't offer much in terms of goals and assists. He's very much a 6. He looks and feels to me like a Bissouma. Brilliant player at turning and running with the ball, getting into space. His passing accuracy is the very best in, you won't find someone with generally better anywhere. Obviously we're comparing him, he's doing this in the Serie A, the Brazilian Serie A, so once again, I never really know what that standard is like, but his progressive carries, his dribbles and his passing is sensational, as is his tackling, his getting back, his dispossessions, his clearances, his ability to read the game. He covers a lot of ground. He's like a Pape Sarr in terms of mobility, with the passing range of, I'm talking him up here by saying this, but like a Bentancur, but the ability to break the line and kind of be press resistant in Bissouma. From what I've seen of him, he looks like the real deal. And of course, Tottenham are continuously linked right now to these players from South America because of Brexit, because of that new rule that allows allows English clubs now to go direct to source outside of Europe or outside of the UK. I think it's 6 a season or 6 per year you can hire or you can sign. And traditionally those players would be unavailable to Tottenham and they would have to go into Europe first and then impress, and then teams in the Premier League then have to pay a premium for more of a known commodity. So this option, this access to the South American market is interesting, it's a benefit, but if you're going to pull the trigger on these players, it comes with a risk, it comes with a premium, but obviously you can get in at the first base, if you like, with these players before they move to Portugal or Spain and then show their talents there and then end up costing 4 or 5 times more 2 years later. Now, I don't know enough about the player to give you anything more than what I've seen. I'll put the stats on the screen so you can see them. But he's interesting. And like I say, if Liverpool put in a bid for 21 million, they may want to come back now and go again. And the other team that's in for them as well is Arsenal. So we'll be competing with high pedigree, and Liverpool obviously are looking for maybe a defensive midfielder in January. Maybe he'll be the guy that they'll go and get and allow him to fit straight into the first team, whereas Tottenham will likely only see a player like him or Matt O'Reilly come in the event that Pierre-Emile Højbjerg leaves. With regards centre-backs, guys, the noise is out again. It's the same old story with regard Lloyd Kelly and Tosin Adarabioyo. All those links are hotting up again. Both players are out of contract in January, in the summer. Both players look set to leave. Both clubs are saying we're not going to let them go on the cheap. The usual narrative, the usual repertoire. But one of them can play on the left and one of them can play on the right. And with Tottenham's current issues, maybe both make sense. So yeah, you could make the argument to sign both. Lloyd Kelly is a left-sided centre-back and can play left-back. Tosin Adarabioyo obviously can play across the back too, but predominantly plays a right-sided centre-back and competes with Issa Diop for Fulham. Look, when you think about Destiny Udogie and his natural frame and size, most fullbacks in the Premier League that are of the same sort of stature of him generally do have injury problems throughout their career because of the pressures of the fullback role puts on the body. Plus, I think he's developing into a little bit of I wouldn't call him a loose cannon, but I think there's a disciplinary issue that we have to keep an eye on with him. And so, despite the fact that Tottenham have got technically more left backs, I think, than anything else in the squad, you've got Ryan Sessegnon, Serge Reguilon returning in January, Ben Davies, Mickey van der Ven can play there, and Destiny Udogie, and obviously Emerson Royale now as well, then I'd be surprised if Tottenham were to go out and get a left back. But obviously it does make sense if Lloyd Kelly can play there as well, that you bring in that guy who's a utility player. I've mentioned 100 times how often Tottenham are looking for utility in their squad. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see Tottenham make a move for Lloyd Kelly. But as I say, Bournemouth aren't going to let him go for cheap, or at least they're saying they're not going to. And more importantly, Tottenham aren't going to be the only team that are in for him, because he's an English player, homegrown talent, and he's relatively cheap. So there's no wonder that half a dozen English Premier League clubs are looking at him and thinking, I wouldn't mind the slice. And that may result in a bidding war. You never know. It's going to be interesting. On top of that, Tottenham's pursuit of Gleison Bremer is back on. This is the real story that I wanted to kind of talk about. It was in the press today. Juventus and Tottenham once again linked Gleison Bremer, the name back on, because I do think that if you're just thinking about it logically, a lot of people were angry that we didn't get another centre-back in January, and it's come back to haunt us. I don't think it was personally without, from the lack of trying. I think there was an effort to do it. I just think it was very difficult late on. Not enough players wanted to leave, etc. Anyway, now you've got this situation where Romero has a bit of a reputation of being a reckless player, and just like Casemiro, any of those 50-50s that could go either way are probably going to go against him. He's also fairly injury prone historically, and now you've got Mickey van der Ven, who's a player who relies on his pace and who's now got a hamstring injury. The probability of that going again and becoming a frequent occurrence is high. So I think that there's more of a justification now than ever to not necessarily settle for just a player that's better than what we have but not as good and won't demand first team football. I think that there is a justification to go and get someone of a higher quality, because for sure they're going to get minutes this season. For sure they're going to have the opportunity to compete on merit, but also there's a history there of injuries to both of our centre backs and disciplinary issues. So if you could find someone who is a top quality player who can play right or left, then why not? And I think Gleison Bremer is a brilliant solution. I think Edmund Tapsoba's a brilliant solution, but I think that one's dead because he signed a new contract and Leverkusen are top of the Bundesliga. But I think if you look at Gleison Bremer, the story kind of makes sense. Look, he's traditionally a middle of a three backline guy. I've said a million times that if Tottenham had signed him when we were first linked, and last season he was in the middle rather than Eric Dyer, I think that we would look at a completely different Tottenham team right now, one that maybe would just still have Antonio Conte in place and was playing Champions League football. I don't think that the football would have changed. It still would have been fossil football and horrible to watch, but I think it would have been the difference of about 9 or 10 points, and that would have got us Champions League. So for me, anyway, Gleison Bremer can play on the left of a 4, can play on the right of a 4. He's brilliantly adaptable, he's strong, he's fast, he's physical, he's good in the air. He's getting on it, he's 27, 28, so, I don't think there's a problem there, but it'd be interesting to see if Tottenham want to do it. But of course, with the Højbjerg links, they're desperate to get him in. He might want to leave. They probably don't have enough money to pay full valuation. Bremmer, along with a few other Juventus players, are unhappy playing the Juve system anymore. And, you know, it might just make sense. There's the Paratici thing, the historical trading, there's a relationship. Every time there's a player that Tottenham need, then Juve's version of him is linked. We saw it last week with Cambiasso. So I don't know if it's just that, again, just 2 + 2 = 4.5, or whether there's some substance to it. But when you look at the situation we find ourselves in with the centre-backs and the need for versatility, the need for utility, and I think also the value proposition being extended now to not just being a backup to our main two, but actually we need someone who can step in and do things for the rest of the season, as well as next season we're playing in Europe, hopefully, so we will need to step up anyway. But no, Gleison Bremer seems like a really, really obvious and brilliant call to me. The only thing I would say about him is, you know, like I say, he's traditionally someone who's most of his football's been played in a low line. So, you know, how familiar is he with the demands of playing a high line? I'd say not very, if I'm honest. But I've always thought of him as someone who's very adaptable and eager and can learn and adjust. And so, you know, if you're looking for someone who's a £50 million centre-back, who's familiar playing the high line, and is unsettled where he is and can come in, I think those people are few and far between. So maybe you have to take a little bit of a sacrifice on at least some of the perfect player box ticking exercises. I don't know, Gleison Bremer for me seems like a really good shout. Well, let me know your thoughts. But that's it, guys. Lloyd Kelly, Tosin, Gleison Bremer, Andre from Fluminense, and Matt O'Reilly. Let me know your thoughts. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, best wishes to Mickey. Bye-bye.